Hey, this is Anney.
And Samantha.
And welcome to Stuff I Never Told You, a production of iHeartRadio.
And we are officially in Hispanic Heritage Month. So for today's Activist, we are talking about the works and advocacy of Sara Mora. So Mora is a fierce immigration rights activist who has dedicated her life to advocate for the rights of immigrants in the U.S. She actually moved here at a very young age with her family from Costa Rica. When I say here, I'm saying U.S., so I should probably put that in there. It didn't take her long to jump into advocacy work, as in fact, according to her site, MissSaraMora.com, it was at the age of 10. She was already a vocal leader in her church and community, and in high school, she continued to be a leader and advocate for her community, for her people. This was the thing that she did from jump. So, in fact, soon after high school, she would go on to interview the Costa Rican vice president about immigrants in the U.S. and people who had left Costa Rica and DACA rights and how the country of Costa Rica and other countries could support the young people who are in the U.S. So DACA is a deferred action for childhood arrivals, which passed in 2012, which, quote, offers a 2-year renewable legal status to undocumented immigrants who entered the U.S. as children. Recipients receive a Social Security number and are eligible to get a driver's license, job, and start on a path to potential citizenship. So that's from assembly.malala.org. Just a little bit of information on what that program was. It could also be referred to as Dreamers, which we haven't heard as much of recently, but obviously it's still a big thing. We haven't heard too much about that, mainly because of the whole issue of deportation, illegal arrests, and illegal detainment of refugees and immigrants. So DACA would obviously be also a bigger part of that conversation. It was in 2017, during Trump's first administration, that DACA was ended, which risks the livelihoods of almost 800,000 young people. In an interview with Malala.org, Sara talks about how DACA has been instrumental to her and her family. So here's what she says. She says, DACA helped my sister and I because it opened limited opportunities to function normally within our spaces. For example, by providing a driver's license opportunity, working authorizations, and a social security number. Driving to school and college, supporting our family by being able to drive my mom to hospital appointments, as well as being able to drive to work, has meant everything. I feel like that should be a common sense conversation, because we know that the legalities around that is kind of harsh. And in areas like Atlanta, in areas like Florida, in areas like Georgia, and in most of the Southeast, transportation is an issue. And there's not really any really sustainable transit systems. And so having this type of assurance like insurance and driver's license is really important to anybody's livelihood. So after the ending of DACA, Mora publicly shared her story of being undocumented and why DACA was so instrumental to her life and many like her. In another interview she did with 17.com, she talked about why it was so important for her to reveal her status. So she said, "It was important for me because I felt like I lived in part of the country where that wasn't common. You didn't talk about your legal status, especially not publicly. So I feel like talking about it publicly was my way of saying, I don't care anymore. I always felt like in that moment, it was urgent to publicize the tragedy that is migrant policy. After, I got so many messages from different people, young and old, in New Jersey saying, thank you for sharing. Many said that it made them feel like if they ever wanted to share, they could. But even if they didn't, it was overwhelming to see someone else speak out about it." From her website, MissSaraMora.org, after organizing and using her story publicly to emphasize the complexities of the immigrant narrative, Sara was faced with learning the frustrating reality that, like her story, migrant folk stories were not mainly used in a way that empowered the character, but in a way that totally erased the identity of the impacted person. She grew a hunger for wanting immigrant parents, elders, and the entire migrant community to be able to reclaim their stories and know their rights as storytellers. Her experiences with organizations were negatives that turned into the core of her passion. She knew and had experienced seeing with her own eyes the tokenizing and exploitation of migrant people's stories, and so she took her anger and worked on individual campaigns beginning in 2018 with Nuestra Belleza Latina. This campaign was one of Sara's first bigger steps into mass impact messages on what it meant for companies like Univision to recognize and acknowledge the undocumented population, which is a huge percentage of people in the Latinx community. This campaign led to online conversation on the matter, and when former winners of the beauty pageant heard and reached out to Sarah's campaign, she was blown away by how simple it was to have gathered that collective concern. And I think it's such a big part of what we talked about when we were able to tell our own stories, or were people able to have platforms to share their stories, and why that's important. And also, I think we've talked recently more about how we're trying to be safe in knowing our boundaries, because unfortunately, this country is not totally safe for everyone. And I say, as the many experiences I think both Anney, you and I have had in this business, right? And as she continued to share her personal experiences and journey, she talked about how so many others have come to talk to her about their own experiences and stories. She has used the power of social media to continue to show the humanity behind so many of the undocumented immigrants in the country and other places. In the Malala.org interview, she gave advice on how to mobilize online, saying, "Be thorough in ensuring that the information and resources you share are accurate, and build a community by engaging with the people that engage with you on your platform. Mobilizing people online in this concept of online activism is truly about being of service to others and not about the ego. The time is now to speak out. History is being made as we speak. Staying silent and, quote, minding your business makes you complicit to the oppression of thousands and thousands of people. All resources, talents, and voices are welcome in a movement of change that is fighting against an aggressive force of oppression that does not rest." And all of these things, that is important. And being able to publicly at least support one another is a huge part of that. And whether it's having an opportunity to share other people's stories, or to bring light to other people's stories, that's such an important part of this. So her work has continued strong. She is working very strong. In fact, she just was recently named one of Time's 100 creators. And she was a past awardee of the King Center's 2024 Youth Influencer Award. She's also the founder of the Population Mic, where she tells the stories of the marginalized people in a respectful and impactful manner. So love seeing that work. She is huge on the platform, so we definitely are watching and are excited to see what else she does.
Yes, absolutely. And as always, listeners, if you have any suggestions for this segment or any resources you want to share, we would love to hear from you. You can email us at hello@stuffInevertoldyou.com. You can find us on Blue Sky at Mom Stuff Podcast, or on Instagram and TikTok at Stuff I Never Told You. We're also on YouTube. We have some new merchandise at Cotton Bureau, and we have a book you can get wherever you get your books. Thanks as always to our super producer Christina, our executive producer Maya, and our contributor Joey.
Thank you.
And thanks to you for listening. Stuff I Never Told You is a production by iHeartRadio. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, you can check out the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcast, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.